I have taught school. I have taught preschool through higher education. And during this time, I have seen the most prepared students and the least prepared students. However, my favorite question comes from the parents who are truly involved in their children's education and interested in knowing what they can do to help their child. So learning does not really always occur at school. It primarily does not occur at school. And that's a hard concept for many parents and students. Some erroneously believe that the student will attend school and soak in all the knowledge that they need for a successful life. They'll graduate from high school, go to college, and live happily ever after. However, this simply isn't going to happen. Learning must be supported at home. So being a mother of six children, I completely understand that burden of working, juggling sports, activities for themselves and for myself, while still attempting to ensure that homework and studies were completed. The additional burden falls on parents when the child is not thriving or when they are accelerated. Because, quite honestly, let's be completely honest, a school curriculum is generally aimed toward that middle of the class student, that average kid, right? And there are so many other things that need to happen, and there's so much that's going on that we really need to look at and see how can we support those students who are at both ends. So as a parent, you can start right from the very beginning. Get a good start. From the very first day, read to your baby. Teach your child to read before they even start school. Talk to your child. Turn off the technology. Have family dinners. Get involved. Ask about their. Each school district also has published online the schools and competencies that each child should know at each grade level. Ensure that your child can meet those milestones. Make a game out of it, post it, track it, celebrate the accomplishments and those successes. It is important to be involved at every stage. Don't think that your surly teenager doesn't want you to be involved, because they do. They just don't want you to know that they want you involved. So try simple things with a teenager. For instance, how about a quiet car? No music or technology, just quiet. And guess what? They will fill in that quiet. Then, as a parent, you can see what needs there are. Reach out to your school. There are many resources within the community to help your students. But don't forget, you may be the greatest resource of all. One of my favorite memories as a teenager happened during a night of exasperation with geometry homework proofs. I was struggling to get it, and I was a new student in a new school, in a new city, and even a new state. And the math curriculum being used was very different than what I was used to. It didn't help when the teacher told me to forget everything I'd learned before. I sat in the living room with my mother, and the two of us had my spiral notebook with my class notes, textbook, and homework out. My mother spent hours that night helping me. She first learned the material and then aided me to understand it. Now, as my own daughter is a high school geometry teacher, my mother shared that experience with her and how she still finds that to be one of her sweetest memories, too. And guess what? I passed that class with an A, so thanks, Mom. For younger students, it's sometimes easier. So, first, the subject matter is simpler, right? Plus, parents are usually more involved as there are more parent teacher communication. But there are also things you can do at home. Supporting learning at home is going to be aiding and helping their learning. For instance, if your child is learning fractions at school, apply that learning at home. We did this in our home by cooking, and it's even more fun to frequently switch out those measuring cups and the sugar and flour containers to really make them think. Or we would toss out fractions in the car in silly ways. I'm thinking I'm going to buy 5 cheeseburgers for dinner. How many cheeseburgers do we each get? And of course, that would be a silly, we're not going to buy 5 when there's only 4 of us. And I love the answer one time that one of my sons said, I'll eat them all, then I won't have to share. Or another day they said, I'll eat them all, then I won't have to divide and do silly math problems in the car. So encourage reading as well. Be an example. Go to the library. Even in the digital age, make sure that you go to the library and set reading goals. Read what your child is reading. Make sure you know what they are reading. Be sure to reach out to your parents if you're an educator. Even if you are teaching older students, reach out to the parents, even if they do not respond. Why? Because you never know if they are reading the information. You may be reaching a parent and you don't even realize it. Also, when you're reaching out to parents, try a newsletter. Be sure to email it as well as post it on your website. But parents forget to read the websites. They'll see an email. Provide quick tips for parents. Let them know what you're doing in your classroom and give them some tips to connect the classroom with home and application. For instance, you may give them some talking points. Let's give an example. If you're learning about George Washington, share some facts with the parents that you find interesting and challenge them to find one fact to talk about with their student. Also, collect tips. Talk to other students and other teachers and parents. Be open and don't beat yourself up. There's always a long list of things that we'd like to try as teachers. And don't think you're done. This is for everybody else, right? Don't think you're done when your children have moved out because you're not. You should still be as involved as much as possible. Encourage learning and development as a grandparent or as an aunt or an uncle or maybe a neighbor. Talk about schools, talk about careers, talk about goals. Share what you learned as a student when you were that age. Yes, they may scoff a bit, but they'll love the family history later. Ask what you can do to support learning. Volunteer in the school and ask the students how their day was. What did they learn? Most importantly, tell the students that you are proud of them. It is hard to go to school. It's hard to deal with all of those outside influences our children deal with today. Just pause for a moment. How many of your generation had to worry about school shootings? The world is different and it is very stressful to our students. So, volunteers, have you seen the news lately? Have you seen the shortage of teachers? It's astronomical. There's a lack of resources. And who suffers? Our children. So even if you do not have children in school, go volunteer, get involved, and see what you can do to help. Maybe you don't have a PhD or you weren't a great student yourself. It doesn't matter. Just go and talk to the school. They'll find a place for you. For years, I worked with a friend and we hosted a Halloween carnival at the local elementary school. It was a huge commitment, but it was also fulfilling to see the children excited. Another favorite was spending one morning a week in the library. I reshelved books and I read to one class. It was my favorite morning of the week, and I promise you, schools are not going to turn away a volunteer. Take a moment to think, what ideas do you have? How do you get involved? And how do you support learning at school?